Well, everyone, welcome to another edition of the IPA Interview Series. And I have the honor of being online with the 2001 IPA Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Johnny Karras. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. How about you, Keith?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So this is something new for us, and we've had quite a few of these get done so far, and people are really enjoying seeing all the different Hall of Famers and stuff that they don't get to see very often or hear from very often. So this is a lot of fun for us. This year we're getting into more of the video aspect of things, if you will. And this is just another way for us to bring a lot of content to our members and to the polka, general public, if you will.
Sure.
So let's start off and let's go back to your beginnings in polka music. I read that you and your brother were basically, I don't want to say force-fed into music, but at a very early age, your parents wanted you to get into music.
That's absolutely correct. My late brother Tommy, who I remember, just to mention his name is difficult for me because it'll be 20 years now, this coming January.
Wow.
That he is no longer with us remember the tragic accident that he was a passenger. So my brother and I was 7 years old. My brother was approximately 9 years old, and my mother was really the catalyst. My father, as you know, Buffalo is a very blue collar town. My father worked at Bethlehem Steel at the steel plant, but my mother, I don't know where she got the idea. She said, Johnny, you should play clarinet. Tommy, you should play accordion. And I said, okay. And we did. We studied at a very young age. And if you don't mind, I can show you a picture that I found that totally blows me away. There's a couple of them.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I studied. We both studied at Edwin's Music Store. Everyone that's ever participated in music in this great city of Buffalo knew Edwin's Music Store. And my instructor was Frank Kellish. My brother's instructor was Johnny Banashak, who was both fabulous players. And this, if you could see, this is me with Frank. Can you see these pictures?
Yeah, absolutely. Very clear.
That's me as a youngster and taking my lessons with Frank. And that was the genesis. I studied with Frank until I was 11 years old. And then he wanted me to go on as far as instruction with Marvin Kemp from the Buffalo Philharmonic. That never happened because of, very expensive. So the beginnings, that was my brother and I, our beginnings in music.
So so I saw the two pictures, and one was you playing with him on saxophone and the other one playing clarinet,
That's
for
correct.
me, you didn't do one and then pick up the other. You did both right off the bat at the same time.
Well, not totally. It started with clarinet, but shortly after was alto. And it became, to be honest with you, pretty natural to me playing the instrument. But after that, as I age, and we can get into that, I'm self-taught on tenor, trumpet. I played a lot of trumpet, and we can get into that story as well. And my brother and I, when we were, and I have another picture I have to show that I have of my brother and I at a very young age, that's the beginnings of being, quote, entertaining, quote, professionally as a trio, was the Tommy K Trio.
Tommy K Trio, I was going to say. Yeah.
It was after my brother because we just yelled this. And this is a picture of the three of us performing. I cherish this picture of the three of us. If you, with the glare, I think you're okay.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
So
that's great.
So that's the genesis of both my brother and I with the Tommy K Trio, and that's how we started performing.
So, you had said that your mother had, really was the catalyst and everything.
Yes.
Was there somebody else in your family that was musically inclined or that, was a driving force behind you guys getting into that? Or was it just mom saying, I want my sons to do this?
You hit it. They did not play. They were neither of them were musicians, had any experience with music, oddly enough. I don't know what my mother saw, but going to a Roman Catholic school, St. Luke's in Buffalo, where we grew up, the East Side. I was the kid on top of the nuns. Get Johnny, go up there and sing and play for the students. It's true. It's so true. It was embarrassing.
I can imagine when you're 7 years old and it's, hey, go up and go and do this, and you're standing up there going, oh, what do I? Oh, okay, I can do this. Yeah. So when you started with it was the trio band, and
correct.
How long did you guys do that? Because that was really, from my understanding, you guys did that as a professional entertainment.
Yes, what happened? This is interesting. It's a great story, as a matter of fact. I'm going to say when I was 9 or 10 years old, similar to that picture there, and my brother, Erie County had what they call Mrs. Dunn's Stars of Tomorrow. It was a weekly talent show at the Glen Park Casino, and they picked my brother and I, and my mother and father would take us to the Glen Park Casino, where she'd introduce all the local talent, and we were one of them, the three of us.
Wow.
We had a drummer, my brother and I. It was a very large indoor-outdoor type of venue where people came in, had their lunches, see a show, and see kids perform. And we were a trio we were part of that for a long time.
Wow. And then later on, it went. If I recall this, there became the part of the New Yorkers. Is that correct?
You are correct. Here's what happened. We progressed as we grew. We expanded to the Tommy K Quartet. All right. So we added a drummer and a trumpet player. I remember Kenny Kuzara was a heck of a trumpet player. He joined forces with us. And what happened, the New Yorkers, which is one of my personal favorites and influences, my mother and father would take us to see them perform. And that would be Jimmy Jankowski, the drummer, the Mazureks, Henry and Whitey, Gino Kurgel, Gene Martin. That band, to me, was one of the most impressive ever. And we went to see them perform, and they had heard us perform, and they coined the phrase, this band is now the Little New Yorkers. So it was Tommy K and the Little New Yorkers. That's what I came about.
There you go. Okay.
It's really a great story. It really is, when I start thinking of all of this.
And then later became, the larger New Yorkers band.
Correct.
And then further on after that became the personnel, if you will, changed, and yes, you joined with the Genomes.
That's right. Here's how the Genomes formed, and that was around 1968, I believe. It began, and the Genomes really were, the New Yorkers were beginning to disband. Okay, so for whatever reasons, Gino Kurgel and Gene Martin, along with my brother and myself, we decided to connect, and that's the genesis of the Genomes. Gene Martin, Gino Kurgel. Mm-hmm. Our original drummer, to my memory, was Bobby Zmitrevich, no longer with us. Marty Kozlowski was part of the band at one point, but then everything started to shift. The band really began to, the popularity of what I call the original Genomes, if I may continue on that line.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so what had happened I'm going to say around 1970, 71, I became the manager of the Genomes. And you may remember the Jumping Jacks Orchestra. Jerry Mistovich was the trumpet player. And what had happened is the real core of the band began around that time frame. I'm going to say 1970, 1971. The personnel was Lenny Mistovich on drums, and he passed away at he was a fabulous drummer. He's the drummer on the Genomes at Last album. That's our first album.
First one, right?
That's the first one. So it was Lenny, Jerry, myself, my brother, and Gino. And a lot of the recordings with Gino, I was playing trumpet, and then dubbing a tenor or whatever. I did a lot of trumpet back in then those days as well. And that became the core Genomes prior to the first album.
But that was something that was kind of unique too, was you doing trumpet and then dubbing in the alto on top of it. That was very unique for that time.
It was very unique for that time. I started messing around with trumpet several years prior to that. You know, self-taught trumpet, you know, it was weird with the embouchure, etc. Playing flute, that transition was the most difficult. But I was pretty good, I felt, on trumpet. I know Gomolka did the same thing out of Chicago. You know, he transitioned to trumpet, and years after that became a common. A lot of other musicians followed suit, and it worked well for many.
Wow. Let's go back to the very first recording, which was it was Genomes at Last, right?
That's right.
That was pretty much roughly what, 4 or 5 years after you guys had already been playing for a while, right?
Correct. Great question. Great point you're making there, and I'll try and explain what happened, if you permit.
Yeah.
When I took over management of the band, so to speak, we didn't, you know, we were a democracy, but you always have to have one leader, so to speak. But I was always a big believer to not record for the sake of recording. If we were going to come out with our first album, I wanted to personally, as well as the band, wanted to be a very something that came out and hopefully got people's attention. And I really think that happened.
Yeah.
You know, I could go through all the songs. You probably know many of them. The one in particular was my brother's brainchild, was Clarinet Polka and tenor sax. And I told my brother, Tom, I said, what are you, crazy? Come on, that's corny. Thank God for my brother, because he did a lot, God bless his soul, as far as he and Lenny, Orange Blossom Special. Some of the other things were their brainchild, you know, which was great. But yeah, so that's what came to the Genomes, and I'll get into where we recorded. That's another good story.
Okay, so along those lines, let's talk about Saxarinet.
Okay.
It was what many consider, like, you know, the golden standard of off the cuff riffs, if you will, whatever you want to call it.
That's what it was. Dave Zakowski, Wham Records. The Genomes were. I love this question, by the way. Thanks for asking it. Dave Zakowski, the Genomes used to, as many other bands, used to perform at the Plavaki Post in what is now considered the historic East Side, because Buffalo thrived in the 70s. And Dave, this is how we got to recording. He was starting Wham Records and started talking, and we decided, yes, we're going to record the album with Gary Ramey at Peppermint Studios. That was 73. Saxarinet, again, thank God for my brother's forward thinking. The solo that I took on that, I'm asked oftentimes, did you do this or did somebody else, was that dubbed in? But it wasn't. It was pretty much an off the cuff, what I thought about, solo, which has become a real, I guess, a trademark of one of the song sax solos that I've taken in my life. But that's really the one that I think defined me in many respects.
And how many people out there, you know, everybody, that's what they want to emulate.
Yes.
That is the thing that they try to emulate.
Yeah. I know Wonder, like Tommy, as a young musician, I love him as a player, as a person. He was a heck of a saxophone player. And I remember him as a youngster coming to Chet Maguta's Club 77, which I would frequent on Waltz Avenue. And here this kid comes in and he says, Mr. Karras, blah, 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 brings his tenor. He wants me to show him Saxarinet Polka. And he's like, he's doing it. I said, wow, bravo. You know, those are the rewards of being a musician. I swear, the people and the other musicians, it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And you hit it. Yeah. Tommy is one of those guys that he is just an uber talented guy. And, you know, as a musician, I have to imagine that is one of the, you know, it brings you pride in what you do to have something like that happen to you.
Correct. And that, you know, when I look back at being a musician, there's in music, as any musician would hopefully say, there's so many rewards. It's to be committed to being a musician, there's also some sacrifices, many sacrifices over the many years. But the rewards are being, myself meeting a parent with some little kid that wants to be a musician and spending time with that young man or girl and just telling them what I find important. And as important, if not more important, are the people that we met along the way. I mean, they've been friends. I've been friends with people all these many years that you've met along the way. And those are the true rewards beyond just performing on stage, in my view.
So, you touched on something that I'm sure goes or that affects a lot of musicians is there's a lot of sacrifices that get made.
Yes.
And you of all people, because you've been, you've been playing with the Jimmy Starr Band forever. You are his lead vocalist, and I mean, you are that guy. You next to Jimmy, you are the face of that right. orchestra.
Right.
And I have to imagine with all of the travel and all of the things that his hectic schedule has, there's the sacrifices have to have been huge.
They were huge. I look at schedules, and I have, it's interesting what I've kept. I have almost every outfit I ever wore with Starr, if you're interested. Anyway. I'll sell them cheap. Anyway. But I have schedules that I look back at those years in the 80s and I say, how did we do this? And remember, I had another job as well. I was always a believer. My background is computer technology. I was a manager of a computer department, et cetera. So that was extremely hectic. And we've had, my brother paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I remember that happened the same year I accepted I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Okay. Yeah. But musicians will tell you, and we've had many close calls on the tour bus, and unfortunately, knock on wood, Gussie, who was our driver, we made it, but you miss all the birthdays, the holidays, the family events, all of those things. That's a sacrifice, when you look back. But that comes with the territory, I guess. You want to be a musician, but I become Jim's band manager. Yes, I'm his right-hand person.
So years. When you talk about missing all the family things and whatnot, you spend a lot. You have a son that you love to play golf with, and stuff. Yeah. So yes, do you find yourself able to catch up on those things now? And is it a stronger relationship because of that?
I think it is. I think you're absolutely correct. Those sacrifices, you have those memories, but now my son John, who's married to Kelly, she's a teacher. He was a golf course superintendent, it said, for a long time. And now because of family, he was offered a great job as a manager for a landscaping company because of his skills on agronomy. So he has two children, my grandchildren. One, Cole, is 12 years old. The girl is 14 years old. But you're right. That it's interesting that bond, I think, is closer than ever. It really, truly is.
No, that's great.
And I find myself blessed,
Yeah.
And Liz, my wife, she's been great. We've been together for over 16 years. So it all works.
So let's talk about, you have been on, do you even recall how many, every outfit that you wore with the Jimmy Starr Band, do you know how many recordings you've been on over the years?
I actually don't. I know the Genomes, we did 3, until I joined Starr in 79, which for many was, I must say, not a popular move by many when I made that decision. I don't know. Yeah. But and just to add to that, when I met Jim in 79 or so, his partner Gussie, who's been with them from the beginning, and Joe Dembeck was his other partner, and he was really a catalyst that wanted Jim to listen to my work.
How did that come about, your introduction to Jimmy, and How
Okay,
did that
yeah.
take off?
It was traveling back and forth from, okay, what I had with the Genomes, let's start at where it began, because in 79 or so, the band, the Genomes were really taking off. I mean, the venues we were playing, one of my favorite was going to Poland with Happy Louie in 76 for the World Polka Festival. Things of, those type of events, playing in Chicago for Eddie Blazonczyk and Pillar. But 79, that was a time frame, 78, that I wanted more, but a couple of the guys wanted less. And that wasn't in my vision.
Right.
And that's when I got the call from, I think it was from Joe Dembeck. We'd like you to consider joining the orchestra. And I traveled and met with Jim at least and them for 2-3 times, traveling from Buffalo to the village of Florida, New York. And that's when I truly believed if anyone in this industry was going to take our music from here to there, it would be them. And that's come to be fact in my opinion. So again, and I look back and like you started to say, I couldn't tell you how many albums we've done. I don't know the answer to that. I swear. It's numerous. When I look over the years, the pictures I have from recording studios, could be 50, could be, I don't know, 100. Yeah.
And we talked about it a little bit before. You're one of those guys, the vocalist that people hear and they know. So how did you begin your vocal talents? How did that come about?
I have no clue. Because when I was with the Genomes, I even hired a guy called Paul MacArthur to sing, and after a while, and Gino and Paul goes, John, why do you have me? I really considered myself, for whatever reason, a player. And then when I was with Starr, I became the voice, and it's been that way ever since. The lead singer, lead tenor sax, etc. And I never thought of it as being the vocalist that I've now become, because people, as you said, I guess my voice is recognizable and they know it. That's Starr's vocalist Johnny singing, so yeah. So
let's talk about
that's very flattering to me. It truly is.
Let's talk about a couple of the favorites. So what was your favorite recording that you remembered? What was your favorite and why?
Favorite recording with Jim or overall?
Overall.
I think overall. I'm going to throw the Genomes in there. I have to, because that was the band that's was the catalyst to I think my success, and that Saxarinet has followed me, and to this day with Starr, when I play that tune, I don't even deviate from the solo. This is what I recorded. This is what you get.
Yeah.
So songs that stay with me are that. There's other instrumentals like Nat the Cat that was written by Henry Will for Gubala. That's a great solo tune on tenor sax, and there's several others. Vocally, you're going to find this interesting, because I think about the vocals that I've recorded with the orchestra, with Jim. The waltzes jump out to me. Okay?
Very different.
Very different. I remember Warsaw, Pamiętam Warszawę, we performed in Warsaw, Poland. That song sticks with me. Polish Lullaby, for sure. And then the one most recent that I consider now probably my all-time favorite that we recorded not too long ago, and that was written by Staś Bulanda, was Polish Traditions. Polish Traditions by Staś Bulanda. The lyric to me, and oftentimes when you're singing a tune, it's not as much, it's the melody, but the lyric itself. So the Polish Traditions about, and I look back at Buffalo in the heyday where Polish picnics, the weddings that we used to go to, et cetera, provide so much meaning in it. And I look so forward to singing that one particular song of any now that I would say. Polish traditions. Come Share the
So
Light is another one, but
that's another beautiful.
that's another great song, Al Martino, and we saw him perform that in Germany, as a matter of fact.
So, and you've had the opportunity to obviously travel to so many different places and play in so many different venues.
Correct.
What's your favorite venue that you've ever played?
Boy, oh boy, hold on a second. Um, I, you know, I tried to figure out some of those answers as far as venues, and I have to search far and I'm going to have to say, let's start with the Stir band playing. We've played every place from Germany. We do the Worst Fest in Texas. A lot of the bands do. We've been doing that for 30 years. Obviously, 2020, everything stopped because of the pandemic. I used to love playing Dingus Day in Buffalo, New York. We've been to Nashville, Tennessee many times and appearing live on the Nashville network. Um, some of the things I used to enjoy, Gussie, who's an unsung hero of the orchestra, used to assemble Polka Paloozas, which would feature not only our band, but many of the other bands at the variety of different casinos, be it Mohegan Sun, casinos in Minnesota and Michigan, those venues. Um, Now, as far as my favorite venues, they're starting to diminish a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Those festivals are starting, like the Frankenmoots of this world. That used to be absolutely huge. Polkabration back in the Pillar days. So, but I would say right now, as far as the venues, uh, there aren't that many. Really, am I wrong in suggesting Dingus Day? I look forward to that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that didn't occur this year. So, and
No,
again,
and sometimes it's not the grand stage. It's sometimes,
well,
the little bit smaller things that
yes,
give you far different memories than, like you said, having played in Germany or having played in
yeah,
Warsaw, Poland or
okay,
something. But there's something a lot different or just that much more special about a Dingus Day.
yes, yes. There's no question. Bayway Polish Home. I used to love going to play there. Some of the venues in Florida now, right down the street,
Yeah.
they're gone. Unfortunately, so the it's not the big stage sometimes, as you mentioned. It's that smaller stage where you're right next to the people. You're there, have 500 people rather than 5,000.
Yeah.
I get all of that, and that's a great point that you make. But um, even when I went up for Dingus Day and Kenny Michalski, I sit in with his band and um, I loved that vibe, not only with Jim playing, but then breaking off and seeing my friends and
Yeah.
then performing with them. I love that part. I miss that, to be honest with you.
This was kind of maybe a question that I had off the side and you kind of alluded to it a bit. You said, okay, I like sitting in with, Kenny Michalski, guys in the touch or whatever it is. What do you think about, let's call them jam sessions or call them whatever it is. There's a lot of guys that will, and I am not a musician, but I hear guys say, I love doing that. And there are other guys that are staunch against doing it. What's your take on it?
I'm all in. If asked, I'm not one of those that here I come. I'm going to play. No, 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 no. They'll say, Johnny, absolutely. If I have my horn or mouthpiece, I'm in. I mean that. I remember the days of Seven Springs in its heyday. My God Almighty, I'm there. So yeah. And there's some stories there I'll forget, but no.
Those stories we'd like to forget.
With the Canadians, have a screwdriver. Yeah, right.
It's our friends from the north. It's funny. I don't know anybody that doesn't have a connection or a story about or with them.
I know. I I'll tell you this story because it's, and I'll tell you a stir story too if you want, but
Yeah.
because over the years, let's face it, we rarely indulged in any adult beverages, but no. I remember Seven Springs. And a story about myself, and we talked about, they had this, you're familiar with the chalets and all that.
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, come over for a drink. And I go for a beer, and they say, oh, we don't have any beer, but we have screwdrivers. And I said, oh, that's fine. So, but what they were doing, they had spiritus, which, what is 180 proof or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they cut it with orange juice. And here, after that, I drink that. Well, the next thing I know, they found me in the lobby on a wheelchair out. So, he's quiet, don't bother him. But our friends from the north,
yes,
yeah. So
a unique group, and we love them all. I mean, they're just such genuine people,
But yeah,
you've had the opportunity to play at the Grand Ole Opry.
That's correct.
Which, is a rarity for a lot of people, let alone, a polka musician to be able to play at the Grand Ole Opry. What was that like?
Again, I have some of my favorite photos are of that event. And you may have heard the story that Willie Nelson, who has befriended Jim, the orchestra, he's done some recordings with us. I've had the pleasure of meeting him. And it was a day after we appeared on the Nashville Network, or the day before, one of the two, with Ralph Emery's show and Crook and Chase. And that's live TV. That's kind of gets your attention if you're singing a ton. But, you don't want to mess the word. But what Willie Nelson did, we were invited, and that was because of Bill Anderson, to perform on the Grand Ole Opry stage. And you go on, it's like one after another. You have 10 minutes, just do this. But what Willie Nelson did, he pulled his bus in unannounced, and we sang a song, Tavern in a Town. That's the one that he sang with the Jimmy Starr Orchestra on one of our recordings. So I will never forget the Grand Ole Opry. I forget the capacity. And I'm on stage. I go in the front. I have my vocal mic. Jim's in the center. Frankie Urbanowicz, who has been with me for 37 years. God bless his presence, by the way, Frankie. So we have our mics, and I sing the first verse, the chorus, and we go into the second, and Willie Nelson walks out. The place, I cannot tell you, it was like headlights, that you can't see any further. And people literally started to come toward the stage. And he walks right next to me, and I swear to you, he looks at me from the day before. He says, how are you today? And I said, that's all this is called. I swear to you, that's a great story. And to his credit, he stayed after. He sang his own stuff. First time he had been on the Opry in who knows when, and signed every autograph backstage before he left. And that's Willie Nelson. That's the type of person he was.
And you've also had the opportunity to do his Farm Aid benefit as well, right?
That's correct. 4 of them. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, again, it's just, it's one of those things that, how you say you play in Bayway, playing, even Dingus Day is huge, but you get in, Bayway or any other place. And that's nothing. That's nothing compared to standing in front of, 10, 15, 20,000 people,
Right.
at something like that. What is that like?
To be honest, your heart still is in the way things used to be, as far as the Chopins and all that. That'll never go away. How is that like? The biggest thrill I get from that, to be honest with you, and I mean this with my whole heart, when some people say, yeah, the Jimmy Starr band, that's a polka band that's going to appear. And we all know sometimes there's a stereotype attached to that. So the biggest satisfaction I have personally as a musician is when you see that amount of people out there. I don't care if it's 3,000, 5,000, give me a number, and you walk out there and you start hitting them with something and you see the response. That's extremely satisfying. I think it represents our music extremely well. But it's a very unique experience to be in that front of that many people.
So going along though, along those lines a little bit, what kind of advice would you give, because you've been doing this and you've had those experiences and it's, like you said, that coming at you and having that, what advice would you give to other musicians or younger musicians that are getting started? Well, whether it's polka field, whatever. What advice would you give them?
Let's start with younger because I do have parents come up to me with their kids and, he's going to play this. The one message, there's several messages I have from my personal experience. There's a famous saying, music is what feelings sound like. And to me, that's a key to being a really good musician is understand the feeling behind the horn, that 80 to 90% of it is right here, your hearing ability, the ability to hear, and the ability to make a whole note. And I mean this so sincerely. I said, you don't have to put 1,000 notes together to be good. Make a whole note sound pretty, make it sound nice, make however it's all of us had our influences, and I did as well. Boots Randolph was an influence when I was a youngster, and go figure, I performed with him live at a casino, playing Tennessee Waltz. How great was that? But to develop your own unique style, we can listen to someone, try and copy some of their stuff. But one thing I always wanted about myself is to have the style that some would say, that's Karis, or that's so, you know what I'm saying? So
but I also think you achieved that.
Pardon me?
I also believe that you've achieved that to where you go, again, whether it's your vocal or whether it's your playing, it's goes, absolutely, that's Karis.
Okay.
And people know that.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the trying to, and not everybody can accomplish it, but if you see someone a gift, and I have, Al Piekoski's son, perfect example. He's going to be good. And he and I have spoken. He comes to me, Zach, and we talk a lot. And I say, Zach, you got it happening. Be you, be Zach. How you play. You can listen to others and listen to their techniques. Develop the Zach style.
Yeah.
They're going to say that's Al's son. When it's hard for me to put that into total words. I can show it.
No, and it's funny. I've actually had that conversation along those with him. And when he started playing with Box On,
right.
and he was so quiet.
Yep.
Like he knew what to play.
Yep.
He knew what to play. He knew what to do, but he was hesitant about making his presence known. And I said, Zach, be you. You have that in you to be that guy, to be a great musician. Be you. Yeah. And now you see him, as time has gone on, and boy, is he bringing it out.
Yep. And for an example with Jim, I have to mention this. Some people say, oh, they're reading music, this and yeah, okay. But here's the difference with me. I have my charts, and I've had musicians come up to me and they remark what I'm doing. I don't follow things completely strict, whether it be a polka or whatever. A big band chart, that's one thing. But when it comes to polka, I'm adding my feel to the notes, and I'm heard coming out there, and that's what I personally do, what I add to my type of playing to the Starr band. And Zach, I think he's following the right path. I really believe what I hear with Box On is so good. Yeah. He's a young man, but I hope I answered it, Ken. It's kind of a complicated question at times, but it's to try and develop it. Yep.
So I think along those lines, you had said you like to add your own little riff on things or whatever it is. Is that the thing that you feel sets you apart from other musicians that says, I know who that guy is? When somebody hears it on a recording or radio or whatever it may be, they go, that's how I know it's him.
I hopefully they do. The people that follow the band or follow polka music, etc. I I can name some musicians, say, oh, but there's others. I have I don't know. But my goal has always been, ever since I can remember, is, and maybe it's some of the influences I've had, who I listen to, how I listen to them, and cultivating what skill I had. So, it's true. Hey, I took, but I could go on and on about that. But I try to maintain my own unique style, and my solos are mine type of, that's my objective.
It's what makes your sound you.
I hope so.
Yeah. And I know there's not a better way to say that, but I think everybody would understand it.
And I say that in a very humble way. It's just what it is. That's been my goal as far as being a musician.
So tell me what's been kind of like one of the craziest things that's ever gone on, story-wise for you in all your years, one of the craziest things that's ever happened.
How much time do we have?
As much time as you want. It does not matter.
Keith, I could sit here and tell you stories, and some would be appropriate, maybe others
aren't, right?
I thought about that question, and I go, my God, whether it be Frankenmuth or whatever, because let's be honest, you put some musicians together, it could be, whether it be Lush's guys or Blazon, I don't care who they are. There's some funny stuff that happened. But one of my favorite stories, and don't tell Jim I told you this, but I'm going to. Well, one story that jumps out for me, because back in the 80s, 86, 87, I think it was right in that time frame, you may know the name Phil and Joe Necro, the knuckleballers.
Yes.
Phil Necro, famous 300 game. We were all friends, and they followed our orchestra. They loved the orchestra. We played their parents', I think, 50th anniversary in Ohio. They brought us, and when they were in New York, I mean, we'd go to the games. They'd meet us afterward, go have a few drinks, whatever. But we played in Florida. I'll never forget this. And they were characters. They like to joke around a lot. We played at a venue in Florida. It's on the East Coast near Vero Beach or what. The place doesn't exist anymore. Hollywood, Florida. Big crowds, 500, 600 people at a Polish hall. Loved it. And they were there. What they did is they went to the local police department, and they told the cops to do them a favor. And they said, listen, this guy, Jimmy Starr in there, would you go in and pretend he hid some drugs or something in the trunk of his Cadillac? The police came into the venue. They escorted him out of the gig. They put the cuffs, and they took, you cannot imagine the people saying, what is going on? It was the Necro brothers. They set him up. But I love that. I kind of love that story if you had seen it. It came down.
It's funny. There's, I've heard a lot of these stories, and I was quite young back in the 80s, and I've only heard from my father and my uncles and stuff about, the jokesters that, musicians used to be. And when I sit here and I listen to some of these stories, I go, there is a part of me that goes, how did some of you survive?
Yes.
I mean that in a very nice way, but
it's true,
because you could never ever do some of those things, like they did today. And I will tell this, Eddie Blazonczyk, it was one of the biggest characters, and everybody knows it. They literally took my uncle's car. They were playing in one location, and Eddie got done with a job early, came, and they came over to the Club 505 in Chicago, and they literally in a snowstorm picked up his car and put it on the South Shore train tracks. And I sit there and I go, how did some of you people survive? Seriously.
One of the musicians, one of Jim's cars, accidentally drove his car. Jim has a swimming pool and ended up in a swimming pool. There's other, how does that stuff happen? But nobody ever got hurt. That's the good news.
And I think that's one of the things that's really amazing is
Yes.
you hear all these things and go, wow, and nobody got hurt, nobody got it, and they joke about it, today.
Yep. You're right about Eddie's guys. There's some dandies out there. Oh yeah. Gomolka could tell you a couple.
Well, again, that's where I got that's where I got a lot of my start with my dad, my uncle Lenny,
Sure.
and those guys, and hearing a lot of the stories, just going,
wow.
Okay, you're actually telling me this, right? Okay.
But it's good. It's all good stuff. I mean, I have so much in memorabilia pictures, and when in preparation for this, I pulled out some of these pictures. I found them myself, but there's other. I go, wow, that jogged the memory. That collection of memories we all have that no longer are here, but you put a photo out. It's really good.
So what do you think? What do you think has been overall? What would you consider your greatest achievement in music to be?
Number one, the IPA induction to me is a personal achievement that I will always cherish. I'm extremely proud of it. I'm extremely, when I only wish my brother could have been there. And I really, if anyone had heard what I talked about, I pretty much went off script and talked about music and the beauty of it, and at times the risk we all take, the sacrifices. But that's one. Second is the city of Buffalo. We performed at the convention center, and maybe we're talking about awards, because with the Starr band we all know we've had, but personal awards. The city of Buffalo named a day after me for my contribution to the Polish American community in music. That was nice. And most important was in Buffalo, the musicians several years ago, they got together every year for what they call the Owl Picnic, and they presented me with an award, and that one I cherish from your peers. That's always very special. And the music has been very kind to me. And the big reward, honestly, is I think the people that are in that I call our community of Polish music, Polka music.
So, when you're, how do I put this? We talked about, music in general, and all the things that you've done musically. What are some of the things that you do, especially now that when you can't play music? What are the things you like to do?
Well, my wife and I just joined the golf course across the street, LPGA, but I still work. I still have what we call a real job.
Yeah.
My office I'm director of group benefits for a company called Quest Financial Services in Goshen, New York, which is the neighboring town to Village of Florida. It's an independent financial services company. So I keep very busy with that. Everything's virtual. I have everything I need right here in my den to operate. There was a time, I would fly up to New York. I'm not doing that now, obviously.
Yeah.
To the office every 6-7 weeks, or when Jim has a job, I'll fly to where that venue is. But that's right now. Everything in 2020 has been nothing really happened. I don't know what 2021 looks like as far as music, because a lot of musicians out there, a lot of people are truly suffering, and I find myself blessed. My wife with her profession, we're the lucky people.
Yeah.
But as far as music, being a full-time musician, I know some out there, some friends, not necessarily in the polka field, but others. It's very difficult right now for everyone, as you can imagine. So I don't know what the future is going to, but I'm still fortunate to have a job that I keep generating revenue and gives us an opportunity to live the lifestyle we currently enjoy.
So, what do you think you're going to most look forward to? Because obviously this isn't going to last forever.
No,
So
no.
what are you looking forward to getting back to doing, when it comes to music?
When it comes back, look forward being, honestly, it's the people in the band, my friends, that's truly it. It's being with the guys and gals or whomever's in the band now. The complexion of the band personnel has changed. Eric Parks, his unfortunate
Yeah.
circum man. That man what a phenomenal player he was. Our drummer retired. Um, my golly, a couple of the trumpet players, so the complexion has changed, but I think the friendships, they still exist, the band itself. Um, I look forward to, hopefully this is true too. I hope our first job next year may be Dingus Day in Buffalo, but I'm not sure so certain with New York whether that is realistic or not. I don't. That's where I see my friends. I want to go back to my hometown of Buffalo. I want to wear my Buffalo Bills cap and say, "Hey, we did it."
Yeah, right. First time in what, 20 something, 25 years?
Oh yeah, I was there. I survived, but yeah. So
So where do you had talked about, musicians retiring and, and stuff like that. And there are some, there are younger kids coming up and doing their thing as
sure.
well. Where do you think it's going to, we talked about this at the beginning that,
Yeah.
it's not what it used to be.
No,
We all know that, we all understand it.
that's
But
correct.
where do you think it's going to wind up? To me, I still believe we've got a lot of years ahead of us. And I know
Yeah,
some people don't want to hear that, but what's your opinion?
I think there are. And I think, as long, let's face it, with Jim, I don't know how much longer Jim's going to want to continue this. I'm getting a little bit older. I know I don't look it, but I am getting older. But, I don't know how long it's going to last. When I hear like Zach, when I play and Dad's there, Al, with our band, he's plays pretty much full time with us, and he brings Zach. I say, okay, Zach, like our weekends, Villaroma weekends for people. Zach's there. I said, here's my chart. If you play horn, I'll go sing. My replacement. But I tell him that. But it's refreshing to hear. I heard Box on the first time in Music Fest Milwaukee. And I knew, polka family musicians. I mean, those guys and gals, they were super.
Yeah.
Uh, and to hear that was jaw dropping. And then you see what they're trying to accomplish now. Hopefully, they're going to carry forward. The younger folks carry forward. Take the place of us older guys.
Yeah.
It's still out there. It still can be. To keep that tradition going.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think, with all the different and the different styles of music and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and taking non-traditional music, or non-traditional polka music, and putting their own spin on the things and doing that. I
Yeah.
think there's still a good future out there.
I believe that. I truly believe that. And there will be. It may not, there may not be enough, and I don't know the answer to this. May not be for 50 bands, but there may be for that certain segment that really have a product. I look
Yeah.
at Molly B and Teddy. They're doing great. They got a great thing going for them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what the pandemic has caused. So yeah, there's definitely a market out there. It's the product you deliver, and hopefully it's like what they're doing. I have to single them out right now. Uh, I think it's fabulous, and they'll get work. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I don't know what you think about it, but that's my personal take on it. Buffalo should thrive. Hopefully, other cities, the East Coast. There's so many places in Connecticut that can thrive. It's just presenting the product.
So is there one other thing, or one other story, one last hurrah before we kind of wrap it up here? One last thing that you said, you know what, I thought about this while I was preparing, and this is one thing I want to get out. What is that thing? Or what's that story?
Oh, come on. I am not going to tell you about somebody putting a pair of underwear in Jim's baritone sax. I don't want to talk about that. What, one story I had to laugh about is in Buffalo, going back to Buffalo. And, Dingus Day, the Genomes used to play at the Jolly Roger. You may or may not be familiar with this place. It's now the Polish Villa, used to be the Jolly Roger. And we played Dingus Day because Dingus Day, my office, where I used to be manager of a computer department, they close shop, they go to Chopin's. We play at Jolly Roger. I'll bet you a week or two passed when I pulled my tenor sax out and I smelled it. It smelled like real junk. People were passing by the bandstand of my saxes. They were throwing Polish sausage in there all night. And there's others, that's a polite one, but I'll have to stop there. No water fountain jokes about Frankenmuth, Michigan, people swimming in there when they shouldn't.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, boy. All right. Well, John, I absolutely appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule, especially, right here before Christmas and everything. And on behalf of the IPA, we wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And really, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to go through all of this stuff. I enjoyed so much. And the first time I got to meet you in Buffalo, of all places, a couple years back, I said, man, I would, there's a guy, you're just one of those guys that you can absolutely just sit down and talk to and just have a great time. And I sure did. So thank you for that.
I did too. Thank you. Have a very Merry Christmas. Say hello to all your loved ones and all the family, friends. Enjoy and have a great 2021. Put 2020 behind us. And I look forward to it. And I thank you for this. I really do.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You take care.
You too.